me today on Cover to Cover is award-winning blogger, author, speaker, and HIV activist and Plus cover star, Mark S. King. Hello there, Mark. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, thank you. I feel like an overachiever. That was an awfully long introduction.
Oh, but you earned it. You earned it. How does it feel to be our cover star?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm 62, so to be on the cover of anything is a thrill, but particularly Plus magazine. I'm very happy about it. I'm very proud.
Yes, I know. I see there's some spaces on the wall in the background. You should have your cover magazine on the wall. It's a
Oh,
wallpaper
you
wall,
bet.
you do.
You bet. I'm waiting for my copy so that I can frame it, and yeah, it'll be right behind me. Just, very
Very
well,
casual.
I don't want to draw a lot of attention to the fact that I'm on the cover of magazines. I'll just put it there,
We'll get it
maybe
blown
on
up.
the front door, on the front door.
We'll get it blown up. We'll get you a poster size one.
Thank you. I'll wait for that.
And how have you been celebrating Pride Month?
Oh, well, I live in Atlanta, so they moved Pride to October because drag queens were passing out during the parade. And it's because it's very hot in June here. But, Pride is not limited to any calendar. We can feel pride in ourselves all year long, which I do. So I'm celebrating as I usually do, which is by writing and telling the story and being proud of our history. Um, I have one thing to say about Pride, and that is that I always like to address younger LGBTQ people and let them know that we are all part of this amazing lineage, that this history that we created, particularly as a long-term HIV survivor, getting out of the 80s alive and witnessing what I witnessed besides the tragedy was heroism and compassion and people fighting against odds when other people didn't care about us. We had each other's back. And that's a beautiful thing. It's beautiful to know that you and me and all of us and a 20-year-old person coming out today, that they can share in that lineage, that they know that that is part of our shared history and feel proud of that.
It is. It is. It's a beautiful, beautiful history, and it's our culture. It is our
Yes.
culture, and I'm surprised every day when I hear new stories here in P-Town. Even the hotel, our friend Pat Brooks, she used it to nursing during the AIDS pandemic. It's everywhere, and there's beautiful, beautiful stories. And I'm so glad,
Yes.
like you're here sharing these great stories and the heroism and celebration. There's a lot of good. There's a lot of good people
Yes.
out there. And now,
Yes.
talking about stories, tell me about your new book, My Fabulous Disease.
Well, thank you. My Fabulous Disease Chronicles of a Gay Survivor. It is a collection of, I'm an essayist, really. I mean, back in the day, I was a columnist in these things we had called newspapers, and writing about my experience as a gay man, coming of age. I mean, I started writing when I was in my early 20s. And then at 24, I tested positive when the test came out. And so I've kind of been writing in real time all these years about negotiating all of that and what we went through and a lot of how terrible and it was. Much of it was ugly and awful, and then, as we just discussed, a lot of it was beautiful. And so I've been writing about that in real time for 40 years, and this is kind of a collection of those essays through time, not limited by HIV, because I spent a lot of time in the book. There are whole sections devoted to sex and drugs and family and love and all that makes us up as human beings, because we as long-term survivors, we don't like to be pigeonholed and seen only as that one thing. We are so much more than that. We're living full and active and wonderful lives like everybody else. Should we have the privilege of accessing healthcare and being healthy, then we're doing pretty good, and we have a lot to share with everybody else about the rest of our lives, and that's what the book is about.
And yes, we are all more than one thing. And something that I found quite interesting is you were saying how, I know, well, you mentioned how in front of a laptop you're reflective and meditative. Conventional therapy, how did it work for you? You touch upon it in the article, and I was, I've done my share of therapy here, there, and people, you're saying they got excited when they knew you're a long-term HIV survivor. they want to concentrate on that.
They do. They do. I've had my share of therapists over the years. It's kind of like having a dog. I don't presently have a dog or a therapist. I'm between. But yes, they're always very interested in my having come out of the 1980s with HIV and how incredibly damaged and scarred I must be. And not that we are not that we are, that long-term survivors aren't a little haunted, but we're I've had the opportunity of working through it, I mean, like talk therapy. Well, God knows I've talked about what that was like and what happened and what it's like now. And I've talked it out and I'm good. I put it in its place and I'm ready to get on with the rest of my life. Like I said, I'm 62 years old. I keep
Looking good,
saying
my
that because I
friend.
can't believe it,
Yeah.
Huh?
I said, you're looking good, buddy. Looking good.
Thank you. I have a little zaddy going on, and I'm going to squeeze the last few drops out of that as I possibly can.
Oh,
Not that my husband doesn't care. He loves me anyway.
well, no, it's funny. This Pride, I did have a zaddy comment, one or two come my way, and I was like,
You?
okay,
You?
yeah. Listen, I'm
Okay,
getting
what does
older.
that make
Boys are getting younger.
me?
Uh,
Just because you have facial hair, you're a dad. Is that the only requirement? Is that the bar?
I see. Actually, one thing I did want to touch upon, you mentioned about, I mean, I've sadly lost some close friends as well. And it isn't the virus that's killing our community. It is the drugs and it is the partying. And I find a lot of the community are turning to these things instead of therapy. And it's heartbreaking. Do you have anything to say on that? And how can we help our peers? I mean, we all see it. The next
Uh,
generation, they're making the
yeah.
same mistakes.
It's really ironic that I survived AIDS in the 80s with HIV. I managed to come out of that so that I could get high on meth. Like, what I mean, there's a lot to unpack there in terms of what I experienced. But then you have young people today, 20s, 30s, who had nothing to do with that era, who are still turning to those things. And I mean, it's no mystery why LGBTQ people who grow up feeling less than, who are told we're going to hell since the time we make it into churches, it's no mystery why it is we might turn to escapist behaviors, right? And so I try to have a generosity of spirit as to why it is people turn to those behaviors. But as far as the most misused drug in our community is still alcohol. But when you
Mm,
look at crystal meth and the deadliness of it, I know that crystal meth addiction is still the disease most likely to kill me,
mhm.
nothing else. And we have to call it for what it is, and we have to talk about it not being cool and what our concern is. Unfortunately, crystal meth in particular, whereas you have people drinking openly in the bars and it's part of a celebration and all of that, crystal meth is hidden. It's kind of hidden in online groups and that kind of subculture, that nocturnal subculture that I was a part of for so long. And I know why it exists. I understand what drove it for me. The fear of missing out and this sexual super dynamo drug, supposedly it was.
Be sure to read the full article in Plus magazine. Thanks for watching Cover to Cover. Subscribe on YouTube and Facebook. Download our Roku and Fire TV app. Take us with you. Get the Advocate Channel app on your Apple or Android device. Thanks for watching. I'm Stephen Walker.